Hi everybody.
Hello everyone.
Today we're going to answer a question that people have asked us, more than one person, about what has influenced us, like what books, what people have influenced us in order to become fruitarian as we are. We've both got different histories, obviously, because we've only been together for the last 18 years or something. And obviously because we're both from very different backgrounds and we both reach conclusions at different times. So we have different people, different books that influenced us. Do you want to start or?
No, you start, please.
Okay, for me there were actually a lot of people, a string of people that influenced me. I think the very first person who influenced me to becoming raw vegan, his name was Francisco Martin. Shout out to you, Francisco, if you're there anywhere and listening. He is a Spanish fellow who gave a talk on eating raw food back in 1992, I think it was. And I immediately woke up. I just thought, wow, this guy makes so much sense. Everything he's saying is hitting home. And I was very, very heavily influenced. Although I'd heard of the idea of eating raw food prior to that, I'd always kind of like dismissed it or not really thought about it too much, even though it entered into my life a few times. But he was like the final straw that pushed me into it. I mean, I've already been vegan for 5 years or something. And he just really kind of hit home and just made me think, wow, this makes sense. And it was only about a year later, I was sitting on a beach in Spain with an old friend of mine called Anthony. And Anthony and I, we'd both actually been influenced by Francisco to become raw vegan. And we were talking about the concept of eating only fruit. And that kind of made me really start thinking more and more about it, and I realized, well, yeah, fruit is the only food which is truly given. So from me, that's when I first got that aha moment. That's what I want to be. That's what I want to do in life, is be fruitarian, just eat fruit. And since then, I mean, obviously there were books out there. I read a lot of Herbert Shelton. I read Arnold Ehret, of course. Herbert Shelton is an excellent author. He's written a lot of books on natural hygienism. So he really gave me food for thought. And then there was a whole stream of other books like Blatant Raw Food Propaganda by Joe Alexander, I think it was, and S.E. Honorable, T.C. Fry, really lots of different books that all fed that flame, as it were, and kept me going. And I know Kita's story is very different to mine, but yes. I'll let her talk now because I've been chatting for long enough.
No, you can chat as long as you want. Well, we may take turns.
Yeah, we can take turns, yeah.
Anyway, for me, it was definitely a very different story. As you all know, or who knows us for a while, already following us for a while, you would know that I always loved fruit, and fruit was my favorite food. Yet, I never thought I can eat just fruit, because nobody ever, jak se to řekne, never heard of? It was never heard of.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of time in my life because I didn't go to work, and I love to think about things and analyze things. And I didn't even considering getting my land or anything. Even I already had my house and I was growing some food in this time of my life. It was not long before I left the country. I actually escaped the country. I left the country illegally. And in those days, before I was leaving, I was wondering what I would do if I want to grow my own food with the most little effort possible. And I started with bread, because that's something everybody eats. Almost everybody have a bread in their house. And I was thinking about that into detail. What I will have to do if I want to have my own bread. I would have to have land, of course, that's with all food. I will have to turn the ground around, sow the seed, wait for the grains to grow, harvest them, all the process involved, take the seeds of the plant, Now the seeds have to be treated to take the husk off. Then they have to be milled into flour. And then the process of making bread itself, if you don't have a bread maker, that machine which is common today, that in old days everything by hand. Where I come from, everything was done by hand like this. So to make a bread, proper bread, will take about more than half a day, because you have to wait for the dough to rise up, then you have to let it go down again, rise up again. It's just a long, long process. And then in the end I would have that bread. And when I thought of that, I said, that's totally insane how much effort and time have to be put into to have just the bread to eat. And that's the only one ingredient alone. I live in a country and grew up in a country where there was no available literature Mango has. We couldn't get books about almost anything. I was lucky to get one book in a library about yoga. A lot of things come to me. Also, I was already reading Bible for a while then. But from the beginning, when I started reading Bible, most of things I didn't get, I didn't understand. I felt even appalled by some things. It was for me like big enigma. But I was keen to read it, I was keen to understand it. I'm a curious person and I didn't give up, which I'm very grateful for. I go back to the bread now, so the bread already made me think this is insane. And so I was keep thinking about what will be easiest food to grow with the littlest effort and not so long time involved labor-wise. And in the end, after half an hour of thinking, I come to conclusion the most easy food to grow is fruit. It's not only that once the fruit is fruiting, you get every year plenty of it. If it is good year, even more you could ever use. On the top of it, the work involved, plus the food is already ready to eat. You know, with the bread, for example, I have to cook those grains. I have to somehow process them to get the final product to eat. Yes, so the fruit is already done. It's cooked for you. It's prepared to eat. You can pick it and eat it right away. You don't have to do anything else with it. If you do, it's just because you fancy different flavor or what have you, different texture. So this was what I come up to, which made me very happy because fruit is always was and still is my favorite food.
I would say Kvetka was kind of born fruitarian. She really always preferred fruit over any other food, and when it was there she would always go for it. I mean, before the intellectual mind kicked in and started thinking, well, you have to have more stuff than fruit, I think she was quite happy just eating fruit and never thought about it.
Yes,
And if she had that opportunity to eat only fruit, she would have definitely been doing that. Whereas I, on the other hand, I was fully addicted to sugary, cakey, biscuity things and heavy, stodgy foods, a lot of milk, and I really got sucked into all that. So before I became vegan, I was eating very bad. I was eating a lot of pizza and I was eating hamburgers and all kinds of shit, I would say. So when I became vegan, I was still hooked on stodgy foods and biscuits and cakes, because you can get all that kind of stuff that's vegan that's got no animal products in it too. So when I actually started eating raw, it was a huge change for me and for my body, and it was not something that my body immediately accepted. I'm never going to tell anybody it was easy. It was not easy. I think the Kvetka, it was so much easier than it was for me. So much easier.
Yeah, it excited me. Every discovery about fruit on this level excited me, because I said, well, this is amazing, because that was something I really wanted, always wanted, and I'm finding out suddenly this is the best thing actually. I can grow if I want to eat my own food. I was reading Bible already in those days, but soon after this conclusion I come with the easiest way to produce your food is grow fruit. within few months I left the country, I escaped the country, and I did not have a Bible with me. We took only minimum, and we went into this special camp for refugees, and some people from church, they knocked on our doors, and it was before Christmas, and they said, if you come to church today, we will give you 100 of Austrian money. I forgot how they called, but anyway, shillings. We give you 100 shillings, which was good money. We have very little pocket money from government. We can just buy stamp to send to home letters. And for me, I used to buy roll oats. I used to eat them just like this, without anything, just right from the bag, because I depended on the food they were giving to us, and most of the food I couldn't eat. So rolled oats were cheap, so when there was a meal I couldn't eat, I would just eat that day the rolled oats. And we just could cover that. So it was big money, 100 shillings. But me and my ex-husband, we both decided we don't go to church just for money. That would be not agreeing with our heart values, spiritual values. And so we didn't attend. Of course, the rest of the camp attend, and the church people were surprised we didn't arrive. That was something they never maybe experienced, but somebody didn't come out for handout of handsome money, especially in such a dry situation. So they actually come and knocked on our door and said, look, we know you didn't come, and why didn't you come? And we said, because we're not religious people and it's not our belief. And they said, but you know, we will get 100 shillings. And we said, we know, but we just can't do that. And they said, okay, can we help you somehow? And I said, please, can you bring me Bible from my mother tongue? And you know, they did. They next day, or maybe even that day, they brought me that Bible. And that Bible was with me till it went into pieces, you know, because I was reading it all the time, because I wanted so much to understand it. So I kept reading it in Austria. And when we arrived to Australia, it was about only maybe first week in Australia, I was reading the Bible and I come across to section do not kill. And then I first time start contemplating just that sentence. Before, when I read it, I thought just do not kill people, do not kill animals. But then I thought deeply about it. You know, maybe it's more to it than just do not kill those creatures. You know, there's actually more life around me than that. And I come to conclusion that I should not cook anything.
One thing I just want to add, there's a little Czech saying, proverb, that goes that God gave man food to eat and the devil taught him to cook. And I mean, I think it's a really old saying, but there's just so much truth in that. And it just came to my mind. But I'd like to add one thing.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. When I was a young man, maybe 17, 18 years old, I was working on a IBM mainframe computer. We got this new computer into our computer room. It was called a Prime computer, and it had the very, very first computer game on it, which I'd ever heard of. I mean, I think there were maybe some computer games. I mean, obviously there were things like Space Invaders still going, but I'm talking, this is back in 1978, 79, around that time. And obviously computers weren't being used then really, but anyway, so I had access to this game that was on this Prime, and it was basically a single user Dungeons and Dragons game that was all text based. So you would say, oh, move left or move right or go forward, and it would put you in all these different rooms. And if you turned left from this one room, you were suddenly in a maze. And it was all about how to find yourself out of this labyrinth. But anyway, inside that maze, there were these creatures called trolls. And the trolls were described as creatures that lived underground, and all they ate was coal. And I immersed myself so much in this game, and I was thinking about these trolls and how they only ate coal, which was basically this like dead mineral that was in the ground. And I thought there was something quite noble about this, the fact that they were eating something, a food, that caused no harm. The coal obviously is just this piece of mineral, so you're not really harming the coal by eating it. And I admired that, because I understood, my understanding at that time was that no matter what you eat, you're causing harm at some level, you're killing something. And it was only years later when I had this realization about fruit that I flashed back to these trolls that I'd learnt about on this game back many years ago, well, 15 so years or whatever it was ago. And I thought, fruit is actually the same. Fruit is something which is truly karmically given freely. So you can go to a fruit tree, you can take a piece of fruit off of the tree, you can eat that piece of fruit, you can disperse the seed, which is kind of what the mother tree wants you to do, because it's not very good if fruit just falls on the ground, it doesn't have enough light to grow properly, or there can be too many of them close together. So it's part of a symbiotic pact between certain animal species and the trees. The tree wants you to eat the fruit. Whereas every other item of food that you can possibly think of, it's not the same. There is always some harm that's being caused. I've said it before. When you pull up a carrot, you're destroying the whole carrot plant.
The carrot never goes to the seed. You never can grow another generation. No. You cut the life of the carrot.
It's equivalent to cutting down the apple tree and then
yes.
eating the apples from the apple tree on the ground. So you've killed the apple tree and you're eating the apples. And that would be the same. But the apples themselves, you're taking them from the tree and no harm is caused and you get enjoyment from it. Obviously, I'm not trying to say that fruit is karmically free, because the reality of the world is that it's clearly not. Farmers don't respect the earth. Farmers do so many things wrong, and it's the only way that we can kind of really genuinely see something as being karmically free is if you've grown it yourself and caused as little harm as possible. Even planting the tree, you're causing some harm, but at least you're minimizing the harm as much as possible. And really that's the goal of Eden Fruitarianism, not to cause no harm at all, but love, and to cause as least harm as possible, to be as lightly treading as you can on this earth while you're here.
Also, I want to say that the earth is not a perfect place for us to live, and therefore, because we muck it up since day one to humans, that is, and in a lot of different shape, ways and forms, and therefore it's difficult today. We have to use maybe more harm to produce the fruit today than we would say many, many centuries back.
We don't have to, but that's the reality of the world.
The world is set in a way that sometimes, even if you don't want to, you actually have to do some harm. I want to go back to the Bible. After reading Do Not Kill, come with the conclusion that I should eat only fruit, because if I don't want to kill anything and I want to still eat, fruit is the solution, because I just pick the fruit from the tree, I don't kill the plant, the fruit is ready. If I don't pick it and eat it, it will fall on the ground, the other animals would eat it, so why should not I share it too? It's an obvious food given to us. So as I was start reading Genesis from beginning again in that time, I went back to beginning, and finally I could see God give us all fruit to eat. In the Garden of Eden there was only fruit. Only when we were kicked from the Garden of Eden because we disobey God. God is like authority. God is creator, and he says, I have a rule, one rule, you have to obey this rule to be within my house, realm. But we disobey that rule, and we got kicked out from that paradise. So we didn't have anymore only fruit. We have other things. And because we didn't follow the law of love, we also start doing things which are not done with love. And therefore we strive all the way, therefore we are all sick now as we are, babies being born sick. A lot of women have a problem to conceive. Before it was no problem. So reading all that, I was fully convinced nobody could take that of me, that fruit is what we should eat. And so I started eating it. And that's what for me it was. For me it was my own mind, my own heart, and Bible, especially from the I learned that for me the best thing to eat is fruit. Because the more I read and understood the Bible, the more I could see this is truth. That my truth was more strengthened. And it's now so strong, nobody can break it. Because once I start eating fruit, I felt so much different. Even I was eating healthy already, much more healthier than any average person. And it was for me such a revelation which filled my heart and my soul and my spirit till today. I don't know even what the word to use for it, but with peace, and I can peacefully live with knowing, with it's beautiful feeling to know that you know, and nobody can take that truth from you. I live in truth, and it's for me it comforts me. I feel like baby who is taken care of the best way possible. I don't know the better way. Fast is different level. That's not about the food. We will do videos about it. Mango started already that food. So that was for me the biggest thing. That's what was my inspiration. My loving heart, my caring heart, my curious mind, and the book of the wisdom. The book where the truth is. And this world is so corrupted by humans that today they make you believe that the Bible is bullshit, rewritten. But I tell you one thing, nobody can understand the Bible only if God gives that understanding to the reader. So nobody can rewrite something they don't understand. That's all. What I want to tell you today, what I want to share with you today, what my inspiration was.
Anyway, I think we're about done now, and as far as inspiring, we do hope now that we in turn can inspire, which is why I've written my books. I've written 7 books or something, and I do know that they've inspired some people to become vegan and raw vegan and fruitarian because of the words I've written, and also in the process of writing her own books, which one day we hope will be published.
Yes.
So we hope that we too can continue to offer some inspiration to others.
Yeah.
And Ross Horn too, he was really, really good. He's written one of the best books really on kind of that goes more into a little bit of scientific details in some fashion. He wrote a wonderful book called The New Health Revolution. It was initially called The Health Revolution, then The New Health Revolution. He's an Australian fella, he's no longer with us, but he wrote that wonderful book, The New Health Revolution, which is well worth reading.
Yeah, Mango read more of those books.
Okay.
So you think we done?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Mango's say first your goodbyes.
Yeah.
Longer than you.
So thanks for listening, everybody, and hope to see you next time. Take care. Bye.
Well, thank you everybody for listening, and also we are very thankful for new subscribers and every comment, and we are really happy that our caring, loving family is growing. And till next time, don't forget about that love. It's there, it's in your heart, and take care of it and cultivate it. We love you. Until next time. Bye.